What's good, everybody? Welcome to Thoughts of the Week podcast. And today we're going to talk about some more Black History Month information. This is the Black History series. And as you can see on your screen, you have Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler, Dr. John N. Wheeler, and Walden Hospital. All right, all going to be right here. We're going to talk about all of this on Thoughts of the Week podcast. So you know what it is. You're rocking with the best. Thoughts of the Week. Let's get it.
Do you know what you're listening to? You're listening to Thoughts of the Week.
Oh, how's that?
Yes, indeed, folks. Thoughts of the Week podcast. This is the Black History series. And what we're going to talk about today, again, Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler, her husband, Dr. John N. Wheeler, and Walden Hospital. All right, so let's talk about and let's get some information on Dr. Emma Wheeler. All right, and I'm going to pull her picture up right here. This is Dr. Emma Wheeler right there. All right, and so here we go. Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler was Chattanooga's first African-American female physician. Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler was Chattanooga's first African-American female physician and the only one for the next 35 years. Dr. Wheeler was not a native Chattanoogan, but African-Americans in Chattanooga, Tennessee, came to consider her one of their own. Emma Rochelle was born near Gainesville, Florida, on February 8, 1882. Her father was a farmer and veterinarian. Emma became interested in medicine at the very tender age of 6 when her father took her to see a white female doctor for a minor eye problem. After graduating from Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, Emma married Dr. John N. Wheeler, and she and her husband moved to Chattanooga and began practicing medicine together. When they arrived in Chattanooga, fresh from their honeymoon, the Negro population had already topped 13,122 and would reach 17,942 by 1910. There were at least 4 other doctors and 3 dentists listed in the city directory at the time that Emma and her husband arrived. Of course, Emma was the first African-American female physician that anyone in Chattanooga, Negro or white, had ever seen, and she was indeed an oddity to the people. Unless they counted the grannies, the Negro midwives who delivered the babies and tried to cure the general ailments that plagued the community, there wasn't another African-American lady physician like her for miles. In fact, aside from Miss Georgia Esther Lee Patton, who had earned her medical degree from Meharry in 1893 and set up her practice in Memphis, and who Chattanooga Negroes have probably never even heard of, Emma was the only African-American female physician for miles in any direction. Most of the African-American physicians were centered in the downtown area on Market Street or East 9th Street. A lot of you from Chattanooga know where that's at. But Wheeler and her husband chose to open their offices on Main Street. As a central location, Main Street was close enough to the downtown area for the Wheelers to be within reach of the medical community when they needed to be, yet it was also located close to several Negro communities concentrated in and around Washington Street, 16th Street, Rossville Boulevard, in the East End, which is Central Avenue, and Reed Avenue. A lot of y'all know where those locations are at that live in Chattanooga. It was also within buggy distance of the local train depot. The Wheelers labored side by side for 10 grueling years trying to provide much needed health care to the African American citizens of Chattanooga, while helping the community to improve their own personal and physical well being. Oh, I'll say that again. The Wheelers labored side by side for 10 grueling years, trying to provide much needed health care to the African American citizens of Chattanooga, while helping the community to improve their own personal and physical well being. Of course, Wheeler was an entrepreneur before the word even became popular in the American vocabulary. As she began to reflect on the medical environment of Chattanooga, Tennessee, she soon realized that nothing was going to change about African American healthcare unless African Americans took matters into their own hands. All right. Let me stop there for a moment because that still seems to be what's necessary today in 2021. And yet in the 1800s or so, 1900s, this was the mindset of Emma Wheeler. In order for African Americans' healthcare to be top notch or to be good, they had to have African Americans had to take matters in their own hands. They couldn't leave it up to other races of people. All right. With money she saved during the first 10 years of medical practice, Emma Wheeler purchased 2 lots on the corner of East A Street and Douglas Streets. There, she had a 3-story building constructed to her specifications. And I'm gonna give you those pictures here in a little bit when we talk about Walden Hospital. She had enough money to pay for 1/2 the total cost of the building in cash. She wanted a facility with enough room to attend the ever-growing medical needs of the African American community. She also dreamed of having a facility that granted full admitting privileges to African American physicians. This new facility would be a teaching hospital too, one that served as a practical training school for student nurses. On July 30th, 1915, Emma Rochelle Wheeler's vision came to life. Walden Hospital, with its 30-bed capacity, 9 private rooms, and 1 ward of 12 beds, was officially dedicated and open for business. Walden Hospital had surgical, maternity, and nursery departments. It was staffed by 2 house doctors and 3 nurses, but a total of 17 other physicians and surgeons from the Mountain City Medical Society also used the facility and admitted their patients. On the average, the new Walden Hospital served approximately 12 patients a month. John N. Wheeler, Emma's husband, also used the facility, but the hospital was built, paid for, managed, and operated by Emma Wheeler. The hospital did so well that Emma paid off the remaining note on the building within 3 years of opening for business. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. Wheeler served as superintendent of Walden Hospital. She personally performed many surgical procedures, but she also had to maintain long office hours as hospital manager. One of her many duties, for instance, was maintaining a school for nurses. She and John Wheeler taught and trained numerous students who dreamed of becoming nurses. Emma will go on to perform this duty for more than 20 years. In 1925, Emma Wheeler initiated the Nurse Services Club of Chattanooga. It was the only club of its type in Chattanooga and was entirely separate from the hospital's operation. Once again, Emma Wheeler proved herself ahead of her time. Her Nurse Services Club was extremely innovative. It had a prepayment plan and offered 2 weeks of free hospitalization if needed. It also offered at-home assistance given by a nurse after discharge from the hospital. Emma Wheeler was also involved in other community activities. In 1925, she joined Emma Henry, Zenobia House, and Marjorie Parker in organizing the Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, Chattanooga's first AKA chapter. In 1928, Emma and John Wheeler erected a new building on East 9th Street in the 500 block, just across Douglas Street. This building was slotted for more office space, and there the Wheelers practiced medicine and offered office space for other doctors. Their building had the name Wheeler and the year 1928 inscribed across the top. In 1940, John N. Wheeler died, leaving Emma Wheeler to continue the family medical legacy alone. He was buried in Highland Cemetery. By 1951, Emma Wheeler had been running Walden Hospital for 36 years, 11 of them alone. Her and managing Walden Hospital. With her retirement, her health began to decline, and finally in June of 1953, she decided to retire from operating and managing Walden Hospital. With her retirement, Chattanooga's first and only African-American owned and operated hospital ceased operation on June 30th, 1953, after 38 wonderful years of services. Unfortunately, although Emma expressed hope that the Nurse Services Club would continue, it was also disbanded after the hospital ceased operation. Despite her retirement, Emma continued to practice general medicine for a while and received her patients on the first floor of the Walden building. On September 12, 1957, Emma Rochelle Wheeler died in Nashville's Hubbard Hospital at the great age of 75. Her family brought her body back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, the city she loved, and held funeral services at the Wiley Memorial Methodist Church. Emma Rochelle Wheeler was buried in Highland Cemetery next to her husband, John N. Wheeler. Wow, 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 wow. She was very innovative. She was an entrepreneur. She ran the hospital alone for quite a bit of years. And man, that's a lot for a lot of women can be proud as well. All right. And again, here's a picture of her in the book. All right. And I forgot to pull up that book here. I'm going to show you guys again. This is the book we're going into today. All right. African Americans of Chattanooga, A History of Unsung Heroes. All right. So that's the book we're going into today. Now, we're going to get into Dr. John N. Wheeler, Dr. John N. Wheeler. All right. So Dr. John N. Wheeler, born in Kentucky in 1872, Dr. John N. Wheeler was educated in Vienna, Illinois. He was 31 years old when he graduated from Meharry Medical College in 1903. He graduated with a medical and surgical degree. Immediately upon his graduation, he moved to Winchester, Tennessee, to serve the destitute African American community there. However, he returned to Nashville in 1905 to attend Emma Rochelle's graduation and to become her husband. He worked side by side with Emma for over 35 years. During his time as a physician in Chattanooga, he was also treasurer of the Mountain City Medical Society and was a charter member of Emma's Nurse Services Club with its 500 members. All right, 500 members. He was also a member of the Men's Service Club of the First Congregational Church, where he attended. John N. Wheeler died in his rooms at Walden Hospital on April the 3rd, 1940, after wrestling with an illness for several weeks. He was buried in Highland Cemetery. And under his picture here he is. Here's his picture here. All right, and under his picture, it states, this is an early photograph of Dr. John N. Wheeler, who married Emma Rochelle in 1905. Although John would hold no interest in the Walden Hospital, he would channel his patients there. This photograph courtesy of Betty Wheeler Strickland, daughter of Emma Rochelle Wheeler. And I'm going to pull his picture up here as well. There you go. That's Dr. John N. Wheeler. All right. So yeah, they did some amazing things back in their time, man. They were entrepreneurs, especially Emma, and she was a very innovative woman. All right. And so with that being said, you're rocking with the best thoughts of the week. Let's get it.
Do you know what you're listening to? You're listening to Thoughts of the Week.
Oh, how's that?
All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read about the hospital that Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler and Dr. John N. Wheeler were operating in, okay, which is the Walden Hospital. And I'm going to pull that picture up here. Let me see. Let me pull the old picture up. All right. And then pull the color pictures up here as well. All right. This is what it should be looking like today, roughly. All right. There's another look from another angle. Okay. And there you go. One of the markers for the Walden Hospital. And here's the marker again at a different angle. All right. So you can also see the front entrance of the hospital. Now, this hospital is now, I don't think it's changed since then, but it's no longer a hospital, but it has been turned into dorm rooms for the college that's right there in that area. All right. I think it's UTC is in that area, and that is the building. It's been transformed into dorm rooms now, and I think it's still up, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So with that being said, let's get into Walden Hospital and read about, so you guys can learn about this hospital that Emma Wheeler had built, and both she and her husband, Dr. John N. Wheeler, operated in. All right. Or had patients go there. So Walden Hospital, first African American hospital in Chattanooga. All right. Walden Hospital was the first African American hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was also the first and only African American teaching hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Walden was founded, built, and managed by Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler. All right. Founded, built, and managed by this lady. All right. Walden Hospital had a bed capacity of 30 patients, a staggering number at the time. There were 9 private rooms with 2 beds in each room. Just picture that as I'm saying here. There were 9 private rooms, and in each room there were 2 beds in each room of those 9, and 1 large ward with 12 beds in it. There were surgical, maternity, and nursery departments, and Walden had a house staff of 2, with 3 nurses on board, one of them a recent graduate from a nursing school. But perhaps best of all, Walden was happily patronized by 17 physicians and surgeons, some of whom were white doctors with Negro patients. The average load was 12 patients per month. Walden Hospital was dedicated to the community on July 30th, 1915, with an afternoon and evening dedicatory service that turned into a gala community event. The afternoon exercises were held at the First Baptist Church, which was also located on East 8th Street. The Reverend E. Moore, pastor of the St. James Baptist Church, gave the invocation. Dr. O.W. James, owner of the East Side Pharmacy and the James Building of 9th Street fame, and co-owner of the James and Allen Drug Company, was the master of ceremonies and gave the introductory speech. Prominent members of the city made their appearance, such as Mayor Littleton, Dr. E.B. Wise, the city physician, Lee Suggs, representing the group called the NCC DBSS convention, and Reverend Tate, who preached the sermon. But the dedication of Walden Hospital was too important an event to be confined only to morning exercises. All right. There were evening exercises too, which were held in the stately parlors of Walden Hospital. This time, Dr. W.A. Thompson was master of ceremonies and gave the introductory speech. Reverend Charles A. Bell gave the invocation, and businessmen, physicians, and professional men from the community gave 2-minute speeches. The list of physicians attending the grand opening was impressive. All right, as I change pages here. By now, Chattanooga was proud of its little oddity called Emma Rochelle Wheeler. She had come to Chattanooga as its first and only female African-American physician, but now the community knew her as an innovator and entrepreneur. Doctors Looney, Moore, Stevens, Patton, Callier, Douglas, Taylor, Foster, Fields, Allen, Sims, Sharp, Valentine, Duro, Eberhart, Wilson, Cabinet, Frierson, and Macker all came to sum up their impression of Walden Hospital and to wish Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler well. Professor Howes and Mr. George Washington Franklin, undertaker and owner of the G.W. Franklin Funeral Home, represented the businessmen and professionals of the community. A nursing school. In 1925, 10 years after its opening, Emma Wheeler had another innovative idea. She believed that Chattanooga's Negro community needed more than just a healthcare facility where they could be admitted in times of need. She believed that African American community needed a nursing school where aspiring African American healthcare professionals could learn how to teach other people in the community about healthcare. And that was one of the things I had left out. She had also had a school built as well. So Dr. Emma Wheeler, she did a lot. In 1898, Dr. Thomas William Hagler had started a little school called the Chattanooga National Medical College, where he educated both Negroes and whites in the medical professions. Now it was Emma's turn to start a school that would allow African Americans to rise above such typical occupations as domestic housekeeper, farmer, cook, nanny, and janitor to medical occupations, such as nurse or pre-medicine. She and her husband John taught and trained scores of African Americans who dreamed of becoming nurses. Emma Wheeler also started the Nurse Services Club. This was the only club of its type in Chattanooga and was operated entirely separate from the Walden Hospital. All right, that was separate. Even Erlanger Hospital, the local white hospital, did not have a club like this one. All right, even the white hospital. I know of Erlanger Hospital. I also know of Walden Hospital as well. All right, the Nurse Service Club was a type of wellness club and may well have been the first of its type in the Chattanooga area. After years of serving poverty-stricken Negroes who could barely pay the fees for an emergency procedure, Emma got the idea to invent a prepayment plan that would take care of all that. She designed the plan so that if African Americans paid money into it, even while they were well, they would be guaranteed 2 free weeks of hospitalization when the need arose. All right. Plus, they would receive at-home assistance by one of Emma's nurses after they were discharged from the hospital. The price was 25 cents per week, a fortune at that time, certainly, but well worth it in the end. No other medical establishment in Chattanooga had ever offered such perks before Wheeler started her Nurse Services Club, although others would quickly follow her example. So again, like I said, she was very innovative, came up with different methods and ideas to add on and improve her hospital. All right. And again, let me pull this up. Here's the hospital. Get that on the screen. All right. Let's see here what we got here. So Walden Hospital civil duty. All right. Walden Hospital did not only perform a medical duty to the community, it performed a civil duty also. When World War II became a harsh reality in 1939, Chattanooga African Americans were fully expected to serve their country like the rest of the males across the nation. The problem was that the same prejudice and discrimination prevalent in the early years still stood in 1939. Ready and able young Negro boys needed to pass their physicals before they could be inducted into the service and sent off to fight for the country that still did not, as yet, see them as equals. Unfortunately, these boys were not allowed into the city hospitals for their physicals because the city hospitals were for whites only. But Walden Hospital solved that problem. One by one, these brave young boys lined up at the fire escape stairs located on the right side of Walden Hospital and patiently waited their turn for the physical exam. Emma Wheeler prepared a sunny room with large windows on the very top floor, and there she arranged the tables and necessary equipment. And as each frightened, hopeful, skittish, or courageous recruit stepped over the threshold, Chattanooga's only female Negro physician performed the very examination that the white doctors would not. In another instance, Walden Hospital fixed the social blunder associated with the Chattanooga Streetcar Company. The Chattanooga Streetcar Company employed more African Americans. They were expected to be in excellent physical condition. However, they too were turned away from area white hospitals when they went for physical exams. Walden Hospital opened its doors to these employees. All right, so here's lastly here. Walden Hospital most certainly served the African American community in many ways. And yes, indeed, they very much so did. The nurse training school helped African Americans to better themselves. Walden's Nurse Services Club was like healthcare insurance for people with low incomes, and Walden Hospital served the public by accepting African American patients who were not welcome in other scenarios. So, in short, Walden Hospital was, for a time, everything to everyone in the African American community. All right. And again, from inside the book, here's the black and white picture of the saying that you guys see on the color one. So Walden Hospital, they definitely stepped up for all the blacks in the Chattanooga community when the white hospitals wouldn't accept them. So that is it for today, man. I hope you guys learned something. I'm sure there's a lot of people who did not know about this at all. Again, here are the pictures of the hospital, and then there's the markers. All right, and here's Dr. Emma Wheeler, who was the captain of the ship, if you will, and her husband John Wheeler helped out, but Dr. Emma Rochelle Wheeler really did everything. She was the innovator of the hospital. She came up with great ideas, solved problems, and definitely was an entrepreneur as well. All right. And again, this is coming from the book, African Americans of Chattanooga, A History of Unsung Heroes by Rita Lorraine Hubbard. All right. So again, appreciate y'all. This is Thoughts of the Week. Hope you guys learned something, like I said, and you can pass these on to other people. When people start talking about any contributions or saying that black folks did not contribute anything. All right. And so with that being said, we're going to continue this Black History series tomorrow with something new. And so until then, we will see y'all tomorrow. All right. You're rocking with the best thoughts of the week. We out. Peace.